What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles submitted to the channel by Shitcar CFC, who's running the full Slowpoke evolution line in the Summer Cup, where they've received 5 buffs in total between them. Of course, all 3 Pokemon having access to Confusion, Slowpoke running Water Pulse, which is slightly cheaper in energy this season, and Slowbro gaining access to Drain Punch, a very underwhelming move, but potentially something that everyone has already forgotten about because it is so meh, which may come in clutch for this trainer. Now before we get into the question of the day, I want to give a quick shout out to Horatio A. Gonzalez, Shenanigans Stone, Marble Rose, DC Cool 800 My Gamer, and Chainsaw 81 for their donations in my recent live stream. As always, the support is very much appreciated. Now I do want to mention before we get into the battles, this trainer constantly misses out on hitting excellent when swiping the psychic bubbles because they don't follow the circle at the same speed that the bubbles appear, instead swiping way faster than they need to. So what I want to know for the question of the day is, what's a random small thing you see other trainers do in the Go Battle League that really triggers you? Let me know in the comment section down below. And with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Alright, so go into the first battle, leading Slowpoke into Gastrodon. So this is a fairly neutral matchup here for us. Of course, if they're on Water Pulse, we can resist that, so Body Slam not going to do too much damage. However, they farm up to the Earth Power. We're going to shield respect the damage, and it is actually the Earth Power. We're now going to go for 2 Confusions, throwing on very good timing here, and actually hitting an excellent on the Side Shock. Of course, in the intro there, I did mention that we missed some of the bubbles. However, in this first battle, we do actually manage to hit all the bubbles on those Psychic type charge moves. But anyways, gonna fire off another Side Shock here. Side Shock number 3, gonna be grabbing the first shield from the opponent. We're now gonna swap into our Shadow Slowking, but we have given them a huge energy advantage. They go for Trailblaze, boosting up their attack here, and unfortunately, we end up losing CMP. Now, this is just gonna be a boosted Swift, and Swift doesn't quite get the KO there. That is huge for us. Allows us to get off the Surf. Surf is going to grab the final shield, but they can Sucker Punch farm us down. Now, we're still in a very awkward situation here. They will reach a Trailblaze before we can throw a Drain Punch, so we swap, we catch the charge move onto our Slowpoke. The opponent does go for that Trailblaze, once again boosting up their attack, meaning we cannot commit to a farm down. Even a boosted Swift will be taking us out, so we fire off the Drain Punch, we get the KO there, and their final Pokemon is going to be a Talonflame, and that is huge for us. We can go straight for Surf. Shadow Surf is going to connect, it's going to get the KO up against the Talonflame, and we're able to take that game. So, heading into the next battle, we're going to see Slowpoke into a Shadow Charizard. So, this is fine with us, regardless of whether they are on Dragon Breath or Ember. We're going to go ahead and fire off a Side Shock straight away. Again, hitting all the bubbles. Trust me, there are some battles where we miss the bubbles. I wouldn't have mentioned it otherwise. But anyways, we are going to go ahead and shield up the Air Cutter. And the opponent is going to reach another charge move here. Honestly, I wouldn't have shielded that first move because Air Cutter does have a chance to boost up their attack like they do here. But luckily for us, we can swap out, actually go for a snipe there with that Confusion damage on our Shadow Slowbro, and now go for a Drain Punch. Now, you will see if this does connect, Drain Punch really does not do much damage. Honestly, Resisted Surf is going to do more damage than a Drain Punch, but what it does do is it boosts up our defense. Now, maybe if Drain Punch was more like Obstruct, where not only boosting our defense, but also debuffing the opponent's defense, maybe it could have more use, but at the moment, yeah, you can see Drain Punch just really does not do much damage whatsoever. We are going to force the opponent to swap out of that matchup, but still not ideal for us. We can go for another Drain Punch, but Drain Punch is still not doing much damage. We are eventually actually going to swap out, and unfortunately, we swap at the same time as the opponent throwing a charge, but we tried to go for like a CMP tie sack swap, but we end up losing CMP, so not ideal for us in the slightest. We're now going to come back in with our Shadow Slowking. I'm going to let the first drill run go through here. We are actually going to commit to a full farm down, which is very risky. Honestly, they are going to get us very low. Drill run does get us into actually not quite farm down range. We come out with that Fire Blast loaded. The opponent committing to a farm down, but Fire Blast takes out the Empoleon, and we're able to take that game. Alright, so heading into the next battle, we can see Slowpoke into Lilligant here. So, of course, we are going to hit for big damage with these Confusions. They're on Magical Leaf. We're going to throw it on CMP, losing CMP again with our Slowpoke. They fire off the upper hand, and they do debuff our defense there. And here you can see we are missing bubbles. We don't actually hit the Excellent. In this battle, it doesn't really matter as they do shield anyways. But again, looking to throw on CMP, missing bubbles, and not ideal for us because Gradilli is pretty bulky here. We could have got them into the yellow health range if we did hit all the bubbles there. But anyways, anyways, Rock Tomb gonna be getting the KO. We can come in with the Slowbro, and we will fire off that Drain Punch immediately, winning CMP, boosting up our defense, and actually grabbing the final shield as well. So we're going to shield here as the opponent is going to fire off another Rock Tomb, debuffing our attack, which means, unfortunately, we cannot go for a full farm down, but the opponent actually swaps out anyways. So they're now going to come in with a Talonflame, and things are looking great for us. We can go straight for the Surf. Surf, of course, super effective. It will be getting the KO there. They can come back in with Credilli. They will have a charge move before we can farm them down, but it doesn't really matter. We can just go straight for Drain Punch. Drain Punch, not a great move, but it is super effective. It will be taking out Credilli from about 5 HP, and we're able to take that game. So, heading into the next battle, we're going to see Slowpoke into Furret. So, we have already overcome a Furret in one of the previous battles, but seeing it in the lead is very tricky for us. We can fire off the Side Shock. Side Shock going to be no shielded, though. That is huge for us. And this might potentially, we just no shield this. Nope, never mind. What do I know? We are going to shield, and they bait with a Swift there, which means this can now be a Trailblaze. Interesting play from the opponent, but it is going to work out for them as they do land that Trailblaze. We can now come in, Confusion Farm them down with the Shadow Slowbro. I'm going to get these things confused, but we're now going to go for a Surf there, recognizing both moves are resisted, but Surf is going to do a lot more damage than the Drain Punch. We are going to shield an Aqua Tail, which is a little bit confusing. I actually don't know if they did have enough energy for a Crunch there. Potentially, they could have done. It's kind of hard to keep track when we are in 2 times speed, but anyways, we're going to swap out. Unfortunately, the opponent comes in with a Credilli, and unless they go for a Rock Tomb here, we should just be losing this game. Grass Knot gets the KO there. We can come back in with the Slowbro. We can reach a Drain Punch, but I don't even know if this KOs. It probably doesn't. Drain Punch actually nowhere near KOing the Credilli. What on earth is that damage? And unfortunately, they can fire off a Grass Knot, taking out the Slowbro, and we do lose that game. But into the next battle, we're going to see the opponent is lagging there. We're taking full advantage as we see a Core Breaker to the team, a Galvantula, which of course both the electric typing and the bug typing going to hit for super effective damage up against the entire team. We are going to shield up a Lunge here, and because they lagged, we can now overfarm as well and still fire off a Side Shock here. Side Shock is going to get the KO. We have match shields. The opponent's going to come in with a shiny Jellicent, which is, by the way, a very nice shiny, but we're going to go for a Drain Punch. There is no way they shield here, even if they don't know this matchup very well. We throw quite early, so I just wouldn't shield in that situation anyways. We're going to shield a Shadow Ball, and we will get off another Drain Punch. I am definitely not sure about this. Drain Punch number 2 actually gets shielded though, and now we're going to swap. We're going to catch a charge move onto our Slowpoke. I'm still not sure about this either, but the opponent goes for an undercharge there, trying to commit to a farm down, but that backfires massively. Obviously, they lagged at the start, so maybe just weren't aware of how much energy the Slowpoke had. But either way, we should now be looking fine. We're going to come back in, force them to throw their energy pretty much straight away. As the opponent fires off the Mud Bomb, we can now come in with that Shadow Slowking, and all we need to do now is fire off a Surf. The opponent is going to reach a charge move here. Mud Bomb is going to do decent damage here, and we are still overfarming. We allow them to reach another Mud Bomb. Mud Bomb just barely doesn't take us out, and because we've got it, we are now going for the BM Fire Blast. Fire Blast gets the KO there, and we're able to take that game. I have to say the commitment to the BM was actually worth it in the end. High stakes but high rewards. Into the next battle, we're going to see Azumarill in the lead. We are going to no shield the first charge move, and the opponent does fire off a Play Rough. We can now go for 2 confusions, looking to throw on perfect timing there. Unfortunately, missing out on some bubbles. It looks like we are actually stuttering quite a bit, getting a lot of frame drops, so potentially not this trainer's fault every single time we miss bubbles. But either way, if we did just swipe at the same speed as the bubbles appear, it would be a lot easier for us to hit all of those bubbles. But anyways, going to come in with the Slowbro, go for that Confusion Farm down, and the opponent's going to come in with a Ferrothorn. So this is not ideal for us. We do have Drain Punch, but like I mentioned, since it doesn't drop their defense, it doesn't really do much to help us. Drain Punch just doesn't do much damage. We can boost up our defense, but it doesn't really matter. Every time we throw it, we are, of course, going to be slightly lower in HP as they are landing Bullet Seeds. And pretty much anytime they throw a Power Whip, regardless of how much we boost our defense, it will probably one-shot us anyways. But either way, we are still staying in this matchup. We're going to go for yet another Drain Punch here. Drain Punch is going to finally grab a shield from the opponent, and potentially we might have actually put them into 3 Confusion Farm down range. They fire off a Power Whip straight away. We come in with the Slowking, and we can actually commit to a full farm down there, and their final Pokemon is going to be Makago. That is huge for us. We are farming out to 1 away from back-to-back charge moves. We fire off the first Surf. Surf is going to grab that final shield. They can reach a Rock Tomb, but Rock Tomb will not be enough damage to get the KO, and we have the Surf loaded. They can debuff our attack. It doesn't matter. Surf is double super effective. It easily takes out Macargo, and we take that game. Now going straight into the next battle, apparently, leading into a Wigglytuff. We're going to go for a Side Shock there. We miss a bubble, but we do still get that excellence, so not the worst case scenario. We are going to shield up the Swift, and again, we can now go for 2 confusions, firing off on great timing, firing off that Side Shock, and Side Shock is going to be double shielded by the Wigglytuff. Now, when we are like pre-rank 20, it's kind of hard to tell if the opponent is weak to the slow family or if they just like to double shield Wigglytuff. Very difficult to tell, but either way, we're going to come in with our Shadow Slowking. Gonna no shield as they fire off the Swift, and let's see what they've got in the back. They come in with more Pekko, so not really ideal. We're going to go straight for a Surf and then probably swap out of this matchup. But actually, no, never mind. We can't swap out just yet because we are switch locked. They can farm us down. We come in with the Slowpoke for some reason. Not really sure why. And they've got a Water Gun Lapras. So this is fine with us. Of course, Water Gun and Psywave are both resisted anyway, so it doesn't really matter. We're going to no-shield this, and the opponent is actually running Legacy Dragon Pulse on the Lapras. That is really cool to see. However, I probably would pair it with Psywave as the fast move. Anyways, we're firing off the Drain Punch. Drain Punch, no, it doesn't even get the KO from that range, and that might just cost us. We kind of have to no-shield here, but now more Pekko can just come in and fully Thunder Shock farm us down, and unfortunately, we do lose that game. But into the next battle, we see Venusaur in the lead. This is a good matchup for us. The opponent is just going to go for a Sludge. We're actually going to shield anyways. We definitely don't need to. Sludge is, of course, going to be neutral damage, but Slowpoke actually has decent bulk, so we don't need to shield that. Anyways, we're going to fire off a Side Shock. Side Shock is going to grab a shield in return. This is just going to be another Sludge, so we will no shield this time around. And you can see we can tank that. They now swap into Charizard on Ember. We're going straight for Water Pulse. Water Pulse does huge damage. We can now snipe with that Shadow Slowking. They come back in with the Venusaur just to be fully farmed down, and their final Pokemon is going to be a Blastoise, and there's not a lot they can do here. Of course, if they're running Skull Bash, they should be going for Skull Bash, and Skull Bash does have neutral play, but they don't actually farm up to it, so we're going to no shield. It is just a Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon not going to do too much damage there, and it looks like once again we are committing to the BM Fire Blast just because we can. We're going to shield up the next Hydro Cannon. We have got them very low to the point where even a resisted non-stab Fire Blast is going to take out the Blastoise, and we're able to take that game. Into the next battle, leading into Credilli, so not a great lead matchup for us. We're going to fire off a Side Shock, but we actually lose CMP up against Credilli. That is surprising, and that kind of just tells you how bulky Slowpoke is. We're going to no-shield though, and like every Credilli user does, they're going to go for a Rock Tomb bait, which means we can tank that. Potentially, do they bait again here? We are going to shield this time around, and they do bait once again with the Rock Tomb. Maybe could have lived that. I'm actually not so sure, but either way, we fire off the Side Shock there. Personally, since we did lose the CMP tie the first time around, I would have opted to just go for an extra confusion like we're doing here instead of throwing. However, it doesn't really make a difference at this point. We've used the shield. We can come in with that Slowbro, get an energy advantage, and they're going to have a Lapras in the back. So once again, going for Drain Punch. It's not going to do much damage, but they already can't do much damage unless we see another Dragon Pulse Lapras, or they go for a Skull Bash, but it is just a resisted Ice Beam. We can tank that very comfortably. The next one is going to do even less damage. We can go for Drain Punch once again. However, it doesn't really put them into farm down range before they reach yet another charge move, and even just resisted damage does get us fairly low. We swap out at the same time as the opponent. They swap into a Talonflame, and things are looking a little bit tricky for us. Of course, we can shield here, but we are now all shields down, and Talonflame does hit very hard. So we're going to fire off a Surf there. Surf is going to grab the first shield from the opponent. To be fair, if they do full send a Brave Bird, we can probably confusion farm them down, but they go for that Fly, and we barely hang on. We can fire off the Surf. Surf is going to be shielded, but we can confusion farm them down. They come out with that Drain Punch loaded, and Drain Punch from this range will be enough damage to finally take out the Lapras, and we're able to take that game. Into the next battle, you can see Dunsparce in the lead. So this is another neutral matchup here. This time we are opting to go for an extra confusion, and it works out for us as the opponent does throw straight away. They go for Dig there, which is interesting. And when I say interesting, I mean just the wrong move. You should be running Drill Run if you do have Dunsparce. Of course, if you do actually have Charge DMs. A lot of people right now, including me, are kind of struggling with Charge DMs. However, I have felt like I've been getting more Charge DMs from the Go Battle League this season than in previous seasons from like the actual set rewards, not just obviously the new battle pass does have TMs in it, which is also quite nice for me. But anyways, enough on that tangent. We are coming back to commentating on this battle. We're gonna no shield here, and Credilli, oh my gosh, Credilli users, they are learning, they are throwing the correct move, and it is punishing us. They actually go for a grass knot there. That is a huge surprise, and that might just cost us this game, as now we come in, we're gonna shield again, and they do once again full send the grass knot, but they've got Greninja in the back, so realistically, we're probably gonna lose this game anyways, regardless of whether we shielded that grass knot or not. Either way, we're gonna swap. We are gonna try and make this close here, as Night Slash gets the KO. We can now come back in with the Slowbro, but we do not opt to throw straight away, and as a result, we're not boosted in our defense. That does huge damage. They can just Water Shuriken farm us down, but it doesn't really matter anyways. You can see once again, Drain Punch does miserable damage despite being super effective up against a very glassy Pokemon in Greninja, and unfortunately we do lose that game. But into the next battle, we're going to see a problematic Pokemon for us to deal with, the Dene, as they can just go straight for Parabolic Charge, outpacing us and boosting up their defense in the process. Here, we're only going to reach one charge move, so personally, probably would have made more sense to go for Water Pulse, and they do actually no shield. So now we're going to come in with the Slowbro. They do throw on bad timing there, which means we can now fire off a Drain Punch. I believe they are 2 Thunder Shocks away now. After this Drain Punch, you're going to see Drain Punch doesn't get the KO, but it does allow a Confusion Farm down, which potentially is actually slightly better for us. We can go for another Drain Punch here. Drain Punch is now going to double boost our defense, meaning they're going to have a hard time taking out our Slowbro. We're going to no shield this. Swift are not going to do that much damage now that we're double boosted, and we can now fire off a Surf. We've only revealed Drain Punch so far, so Surf is not respected. It does big damage. I'm not really sure why we swap back into Slowpoke. It doesn't really matter though. They've got Poliwrath. We're going to completely hardwall them, so the opponent just concedes the match. So, going into the next battle, we can see Slowpoke into Unnovan Stunfisk, another problematic Pokemon for this team, but Discharge really not going to do that much damage, so we will no-shield the first charge move, and we are now going to overfarm here. We're going to bait with a Psyshock. Personally, I would just go for the Water Pulse here. Again, missing so many bubbles, and they actually no-shield as well. They call the bait. So at this point, we're going to shield up a Discharge. Maybe we commit to the Water Pulse this time around. We are going to do so, as unfortunately Psyshock probably doesn't get the KO there, especially if we miss more bubbles, but we do get the KO, so that is good news. But they're gonna have a Shadow Scissor, so things go from bad to worse, as honestly I just can't see a win condition unless somehow we grab both shields and land a Fire Blast. I mean, to be honest, by the time we do get to our Slowking, we can only go for a Surf there. That will get the KO, but either way, we double boost our defense. It's not really gonna matter though, as Night Slash gets the KO regardless. And yeah, I just can't see a win condition for us. They still have a shield and play confusions, are chunking, and we can make the catch, but we still haven't put them into 2 confusion farm down range, which means they will be reaching a charge move here. Of course, they can just safely shield this up. They can go for a Night Slash, and of course, from this range, Night Slash will easily be taking out our Shadow Slowking. So this one, we are trying to stop the recording straight away. Unfortunately, we do lose that game. But into the next battle, we can see a Mantine in the lead. So the opponent is actually going to be on Bubble here, so that is interesting. Of course, Wing Attack did get nerfed quite a few seasons ago now. So we are going to resist the fast move damage. They get a fire for charge move, and remember, Aerial Ace also got nerfed in terms of the pacing, so they're actually on Bubble Beam and potentially Ice Beam as well, which is fine with us. That means we resist everything they can possibly throw. So we're going to no shield once again, and they do go for Ice Beam this time around. We're going to bank a ton of energy, swap, get that Confusion Snipe with the Shadow Slowbro, but they come in with Alolan Raichu. Now, Alolan Raichu has had so many buffs in recent seasons, gained access to Surf, I believe, last season, and Psyshock this season, as well, of course. Thundershock being buffed recently, Volt Switch getting buffed recently as well this season. But either way, we are going to fire off a Drain Punch. Drain Punch is going to be shielded. I don't really think we needed to bait there, especially if we are planning on just letting the Slowbro go down there. But either way, we've got the Water Pulse locked and loaded, ready to throw. Water Pulse, gonna get the KO there, and their final Pokemon gonna be a Venusaur. This is definitely game over. Hopefully this time we don't commit to a Fire Blast, and we do just go straight for Surf. They full send the Frenzy Plant, and we are not gonna get the Fire Blast, so we do just settle for a Surf. From this range, Surf gets the KO, and we take that game. Into the next battle, we can see a great lead for us leading into Talonflame. Now, Slowpoke is probably, since it's non-shadow, probably the bulkiest Pokemon on this team. So we're going to no-shield this. It is just a fly. We can tank that relatively comfortably. Going to fire off the Psyshock here. Psyshock is going to grab a shield from the opponent, and we're going to fire off a second one straight away. So missing some bubbles, it doesn't matter as they do end up shooting anyways, and the opponent is going to fire off the charge move, but we now have an energy for another Side Shock, so we will throw straight away. The opponent actually swaps out there, catching onto a Credilli, but Side Shock is going to put them into range where hopefully one Surf, even if they go for a debuff, will still get the KO. We're going to shield this. The opponent is going to go for Grass Knot once again there, so Credilli users, they seem to be evolving right now. They seem to know what charge moves to throw, which is kind of scary for us. But anyways, we're going to go for that charge move. They come in with a Gastrodon, and of course, since they went for Grass Knot, we're not debuffed. Surf is going to do decent damage in this matchup. We're going to randomly swap out, trying to make a catch there, but it doesn't really work with the timing of Confusions versus Mud Slaps. So they fire for the body slam. That does not get the KO, allowing them even more farm. But it doesn't really matter. We can come in with the Slowbro. They're going to go for another body slam there. They're going to swap back into Talonflame, but they actually have a charge move loaded. I did not realize that. And Fly actually doesn't get the KO though, and we come out with the Drain Punch loaded. Drain Punch, of course, the cheapest move on Slowbro, so if we didn't have Drain Punch there, we definitely lose that game. But because we got Drain Punch, we get there in time, and we're able to take it. But into the next battle, I'm going to see Azumarill in the lead, so kind of hard to tell if the opponent was lagging there, or if just in general, our screen seems to be lagging, but either way, gonna fire off the Side Shock. Side Shock is gonna be no-shielded by the opponent, and again, gonna go for 2 Confusions, throwing on good timing. Side Shock number 2 is going to grab a shield advantage. They're going to bank the energy, so they must not have Play Rough. Otherwise, surely they just throw it there. They swap into Charger Bug, and unfortunately for us, this is a tricky Pokemon for us to deal with. However, we are going to shield anyways, as they fire off the X's. So we're now going to go straight for Side Shock. And then potentially we should be looking to swap out of this matchup, but nope, we're going to stay in, and we will allow, unfortunately, a full farm down. But maybe if they go for the extra Volt Switch, we can go for a full farm down. The opponent actually swaps out, banks the energy, to then just go for a Hydro Pump. That is a very confusing play there, but we can now go for a full Confusion farm down. This should just be an Ice Beam. We're going to shield anyways, and unfortunately that is the Ice Beam. Let's see what the opponent wants to do here. They are going to win CMP with the Charger Bug. That is interesting. I did not realize that was the case, but we can come in and get that Confusion farm down. The opponent's going to have a Dugong in the back, so we should be looking fine here. We can just go straight Drain Punch and boost up our defense here. Drain Punch, you can see, doesn't really do much damage, so maybe we go for Surf next, but either way, I guess we wait to see how much damage this Drill Run does. I think we do need to go for another Drain Punch. Otherwise, I think Drill Run probably gets the KO by the time they reach it, but we go for Surf. Surf doesn't quite put them into farm down range, and does Drill Run get the KO from this range? It's going to be close, but unfortunately it does take out the Slowbro there. I think we needed to go for Drain Punch again, but either way, into the final battle of this video, we're going to see Credilli in the lead once again. This time they're on Acid, so we will outpace them to that first charge move, firing off the Side Shock. Side Shock is going to connect there, and the opponent is going to fire off a charge move of their own. We're going to shield. They do full send the Grass Knot once again, so that is interesting. Unfortunately, we overfarm though. We allow them to get to the next charge move, losing CMP, and they go for that Grass Knot, getting the KO. But we put them into perfect Confusion farm down range, so maybe not the worst case scenario. They're going to come in with Dunsparce once again, going for 2 Confusions, then throwing the Surf. Very good charge move timing. We are going to let this first move go through, as the opponent is going to go straight for a Drill Run. We're now going to bank some energy, swap into our Slowbro, and again, probably just sponge the damage on this first charge move. If they do reach another one, we probably will shield, but they swap into Typhlosion. Now, honestly, I'm surprised we're not going for Drain Punch this time around, as they're guaranteed to shield there. But either way, we're going to go for another Surf, guaranteeing both shields, but they were definitely going to shield anyway, so if we went for that Drain Punch, of course, could have double boosted up our defense, make it harder for them to farm us down. But either way, we swapped out, we've gone for CMP, which means they cannot throw back-to-back Thunder Punches. Surf gets the KO there. We can just Confusion, farm down the Dunsparce, and we're able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.